Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the podcast, where today we're going to be discussing if Mohamed Salah makes the all-time Premier League 11, if he doesn't, who makes it in his place, and in the second half of the podcast we're going to be making our all-time Premier League 11, so stick around for that as well. So Toby, what have you made of Mohamed Salah's career at Liverpool and in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's been nothing short of pretty spectacular, I would say. One of the most efficient players in Premier League history. His stats are incredible. He's won everything on offer to him in England. And potentially before sort of the end of this Premier League spell, I think a player whose impact has been so massive and potentially an impact that has been underrated, I think, by a lot of people out there. I mean, 191 goals and 93 assists in 333 appearances. And I'm not going to list off all of his records and stats. Just check out his Wikipedia page, and that kind of speaks for itself, I think, in some capacity.
Yeah, it's absolutely mental. The stats, the records that he's broken for not only Liverpool, but for his position, and then also in the Premier League, but then also for players from Africa. It's honestly there are so many numbers you could use in any debate to say that Mohamed Salah is one of the best Premier League players of all time, if not one of the best. The numbers are there to back that up. And I think it is a sad time, I think, for the Premier League because he's been such an amazing player. But what I really think about is who's going to be the next Mohamed Salah, who's going to be the next, amazing world class players, because we've had so many over the course of the Premier League and there'll be so many more to come because we're only what, 33, 34 years into the Premier League whole era. I mean, who knows if Mohamed Salah, the person we think now is maybe a contention for all-time Premier League 11, if he's even going to be a contender in the next 20, 30 years, you never know. And that's why I think talking about who makes an all-time Premier League 11 and Mohamed Salah is something that's, I think, topical and one we're doing right now. But I think in terms of his impact on Liverpool specifically, I don't think they win the trophies that they have or they are successful as they have been under Arne Slot last season and under Jurgen Klopp without him. I think he's one of the best signings I think the Premier League has ever seen, especially for his price of around £35 million. Is that a statement do you think that you agree with?
Oh, no, 100%. I mean, the impact that he had on Liverpool when he joined, you can see that literally when he joined, that was as Liverpool started to become one of the top two teams in the country, and those two teams being so far away from any of the other competition in the Premier League in those years when they were at their peak. And that just directly correlates with Salah joining and his impact almost instantly on that Liverpool team. I mean, breaking the Premier League record, goals scored in a season on his first season is enough on its own for him to be like a cult player and one of the Premier League greats. And I think for him to do that specifically as well, considering that he was at Chelsea and was labelled as a flop in England already, he didn't hack it at Chelsea, so he went out to Roma. Even though in his last season and his last two seasons at Roma, he performed very, very well and easily earned that big-ish money move at the time to Liverpool. And just instantly just wrote off any critics with that first fantastic season. And then to just carry it on as he has and do it so consistently is a really key thing. And I think a big point that people make in terms of Salah being one of the all-time greats is that he has that longevity and that consistency, not just that super high peak of 2 or 3 years.
It was really funny that any time a season finished, people go, "Oh, he's just a one-season wonder. Oh, he's just a two-season wonder." And now we got to the point where, maybe not this season so much, but he's been an eight-season wonder in the Premier League, and I think that shows for some pretty good consistency, considering the fact that I think his worst season he had 26 or 27 attacking returns in the Premier League, which is absolutely mental. Again, prior to this season, I mean, you compare him to some of the other players, like we're going to, those numbers are just out of this world. But I want to pick up on one thing you just said. You said he's such an efficient player, which I know exactly what you mean, and I know you didn't mean it in a bad way whatsoever. But that is something that people say about Mohamed Salah. He's such an efficient player. He can just get the ball and find the ball and put the ball in the back of the net. First of all, that is not a bad thing whatsoever. That is an amazing thing for an attacking player to be able to do. But also, people use that to maybe not compliment him on how he looks, because there are some other players who let's be honest, they are better looking on the eye. They play with a bit more finesse and a little bit more flair. They're more silky. The player I'd probably use as an example, which got compared heavily to Mohamed Salah at the beginning of his time at Liverpool, was Eden Hazard, and a player on a similar position, but on the other side, people going, "Oh, he's not as silky, not as smooth." Yeah, but some of the stuff that he's doing, would you rather have an Eden Hazard or a Mohamed Salah in your team? I don't know. Personally, maybe I'm biased as a Liverpool fan, but I'd probably have Mohamed Salah just because of the output that he could provide and the fact that he can change the game. But of course, I think just because he's not one of the most eye-catching players doesn't mean that he's still not, one of the best ever to do it.
Yeah, and there's no winning really in football, is there? Because you have players who are technically fantastic and skillful and great to watch, and then they get labelled as no end product. Or you have players like Salah who are so efficient and produce such good numbers that you then get the counter argument that they're not fun or they're not fun to watch. Which I think for Salah is something you definitely can't say. I mean, you look at his goal catalogue through the years, he's scored some absolute bangers. Some of those dribble goals like we saw against Chelsea and Manchester City, the Puskás Award winner against Everton, he has scored some fantastic goals. And yeah, 100% when I say efficient, I mean it in terms of your Salahs, your Kanes, your Shearers, Thierry Henry, Sergio Aguero, those sorts of players who are so efficient but still so good. And even with Salah, again, I feel like I keep saying things and then saying, even if he didn't have this, even if he didn't do that, even if he just had the goals, incredible. The assists as well, and especially in sort of the last 3 or 4 years towards the end of his Liverpool career, has become such an excellent creator for Liverpool as well, which is something that he's been able to, I think, really adapt and add to his game over his time at Liverpool. And yeah, 93 assists and 2 most assists in a season, the Playmaker Awards for Mo Salah. So he's had that in his locker as well.
If it wasn't for the fact that he was having such a bad season at Liverpool and Liverpool were such a bad season themselves, you could see a world where maybe he could have got 200 Premier League goals this season and maybe 100 Premier League assists. That 300 attacking returns in 9 seasons in the Premier League, that is wild. And again, going back to the fee that Liverpool paid for him, how much would you pay knowing that you're going to get almost that? You probably would have paid 100 million at the time, even though 100 million was super expensive. I mean, at the time, trying to compare players, Neymar was going for over 100 million pounds, but if you would have seen what he would have done, I think most Premier League teams, Man City, Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, they all would have paid over 100 million pounds for him. He's been excellent value for money. He's far exceeded that. Not only that, he's also seems like a decent human being off the pitch who's done loads of stuff for charity as well. And I think that he will be obviously a big miss to the Premier League. But in terms of an all-time Premier League 11, this is where it gets really difficult because obviously there are some world-class players, some of the best players that we've ever seen play in the Premier League. And he's got some tough competition because I think he makes a very strong argument for that right-wing position if he were to play a 4-3-3, which has been the formation that a lot of teams have been playing with, especially in the last 15 to 20 years. But in the early years of the Premier League, it was more of a 4-4-2. I think early Salah could definitely do the job as a right midfielder in a 4-4-2. Salah now, towards the back end, the last few seasons, 3 or 4, probably not. He'd probably be more as a right striker. If he were to be in the Premier League team, what position would you be angling for him to be in more?
Yeah, that's a really interesting case, and I think that's almost like the steps of getting Salah into this sort of all-time 11, isn't it? Is first as a 4-3-3, comparing him to other right wingers. Then maybe you could compare him to all of the wingers and maybe shift sides around to get other players in. And then, like you say, you could even play a 4-4-2. Do you have him as a right mid? Do you need somebody who has played there more traditionally? But yeah, I agree with you 100%. If you're having a team that you're going to be playing with, you have to have Salah as a right winger, I would say. But I think with these all-time 11s, you just have to get in as many good players as you can. And with a 4-4-2, you're basically going to have 2 wingers and 2 strikers. And maybe biased as a forward myself, but the forwards are generally the better players, the ones with a bigger impact. You want to get more of them in that team. So for me, maybe I am leaning more towards a 4-4-2 just to get some more forwards in there. And I think that's fine if you had Salah in there in your team, because it's not like they're all going to be playing together really anyway. You know, it's just to get the best players you can on the pitch at one point.
Toes, you can't just say it doesn't really matter 10 minutes into video where we're going to be talking about this exact thing for the rest of the video. Think about the viewer retention, man. No, it is incredibly important to everyone watching at home and should definitely keep on watching. So should we talk about maybe then the right hand side in general then? Because
Yeah.
obviously Salah is a contender. I think maybe in early years of the Premier League, I think you can definitely put the likes of David Beckham in there as well. Someone who plays on the right hand side of an attack, but plays it in a completely different way than Mohamed Salah does play. Are there any other players that you think we should be talking about in that conversation for that right hand side of an all time Premier League 11?
Yeah, I think for players who are definitely labelled as right wings, taking away players who play on both sides, yeah, it would be David Beckham as probably the number one candidate for up against Mo Salah. Another name in there that I think one who is incredibly underrated and potentially alongside Salah as one of the best African players of all time is Riyad Mahrez. 5 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups, a Champions League. 85 goals and 60 assists in 303 appearances is a fantastic return. And a player who's been able to do it, obviously, for Leicester in that incredible season, performed so well for them. And then to be able to transfer that to Manchester City, who are almost a complete opposite team in terms of play style, and still just have absolutely incredible success with them as well. I think should definitely be in the conversation there as well, for me.
Do you know what? I had him down as well as someone who I really wanted to make sure I mentioned as well, because I think if Salah hadn't been in the Premier League at the time that he was, everyone would have looked at Riyad Mahrez and gone, wow, he is the outstanding right winger and maybe contender. But I think Salah, with how long he's done it for and the numbers that he's produced, has just completely taken it to a whole different level, to the levels of a Messi or Ronaldo for their entire career. And I think with Mahrez, he's one that, like I was talking about in terms of aesthetically, he is definitely more aesthetically pleasing to watch than Salah. The fact that he can go both ways and can do it better than Salah, the fact that he can slow a player down completely to standstill and then move quickly and find a half a yard to make a shot or a cross. I think Mahrez is, yeah, like you said, one of the most underrated right wingers in Premier League history, and he doesn't often get a lot of mention because of the fact that it felt like he came and went very quickly. He obviously turned up a little bit later in his career at Leicester City, and then when he made the move to Manchester City, that he was amazing for the time he was there, but there was a little bit of Pep roulette at the time, so he wouldn't be starting every single game, and so he wasn't meant to necessarily relied upon the same way that Salah was. He wasn't the main talisman in the side as well. I mean, obviously he had some fantastic players around him, likes of Sergio Aguero, but I think, yeah, Mahrez definitely deserves a shout along with David Beckham, and actually they were the main 3 for me. But as you mentioned, Riyad Mahrez, I started thinking to myself about other Man City players, especially in recent years. And I don't actually have his stats and numbers here. But at all, did Raheem Sterling come into your thought process when thinking about this? Because I'm assuming his numbers, I mean, his goals and assists are pretty good, but I don't have them right here.
No, I didn't either. I didn't actually have him down, even on my list of all wingers, obviously, because he did play a decent portion of his career at left wing as well. For me, yeah, his numbers are really good. He must have over 100 Premier League goals. I'm sure of that. A number of Premier League titles at Manchester City as well, and a really good peak. I don't know why. I think maybe he is just that tier below sort of the elite for me. I think he had a pretty good peak. Maybe my opinion of Sterling has been tainted by his sort of his final season at Manchester City and his stint at Chelsea and Arsenal, and where his career is at now, considering that he's still not even that old. Maybe that recent memory of Sterling is a little bit tainted for me, and maybe similar to Salah, sort of when Sterling announces a departure or retires, etc. Maybe we'll look back on his career a little bit more fondly. But yeah, for me, I didn't have him in there, which now I'm kind of thinking about it, is a little bit surprising actually. Did you?
No, I didn't think of him at all in making this list, but I've just, while you're talking there, I just searched it up. 396 appearances, 123 goals, and 65 assists. So he's on 188 attacking returns, which is more than Mahrez, less than Salah. I mean, Salah has almost that many. Well, he has as many goals as Sterling has goals and assists. So I don't think he's really in consideration for that right hand side. But it was one that I just thought to myself completely didn't even come into question because you automatically do think to yourself, David Beckham, yeah, from years gone by. Then you think to yourself, Salah now, and then anyone in between. And I thought Mahrez, but then in between, I never thought of Sterling. I suppose, is there anyone else that you think that, I mean, I've checked out Sterling as a bit of a wild card there, even though I don't think Raheem Sterling should be in the all-time Premier League 11. Is there anyone else on the right-hand side you were just thinking about that you think could maybe deserve a decent shout-out?
Yeah, there's. I mean, I've got left wingers, but I'm going to save them for a little bit later. I've got two players who have played on both sides, who I think are potentially very strong shouts to be in there as just as the forwards in the Premier League 11. One is Gareth Bale, who in those sort of final 2 or 3 seasons at Tottenham was exceptional. So good. And this is coming from an Arsenal fan. I mean, watching him was incredibly frustrating. He was one of those players who was just great at everything. Great creator, great finisher, some incredible goals, great to watch, and a massive impact on Spurs. And I think if Bale was at Tottenham for longer, didn't take that move to Real Madrid, he would have a very strong case for being in the Premier League 11. And the other one was one that is a massive name. Cristiano Ronaldo has to be in that conversation as one of the people in that front line who, for probably maybe half and half, I would say his time at United was either right wing or left wing. So I certainly think you could have him as a right winger in the 11. 3 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup, 2 EFL trophies, a Champions League, Ballon d'Or, multiple Premier League players of the season, 103 goals and 37 assists in 236 appearances. Doesn't have that longevity that Salah has, but possibly the best peak ever in the Premier League, those last 2, maybe 3 seasons of Man United. I mean, to win a Ballon d'Or, 31 goals in a season. For me, I would say that is potentially the best Premier League season, or Premier League peak at least.
So let's do that one at a time. I think Gareth Bale, in terms of thinking of the fact that he's a left footer, you could make an argument that he could be on the right hand side as well as on the left, like you said. I think for me, with Gareth Bale, I think because he started a bit further back at left back and he was incredibly attacking. I think, if I remember rightly, I think initially Spurs weren't quite sure what to do with Luka Modric, so then they played him kind of left midfield in the 4-4-2, so then he could tuck in and then Bale would just be bombing up and down the entire left-hand side. And I think Bale, he was, some seasons, some of the shots he was having from outside the box were just absolutely ridiculous, and he was just like, with the pace, the power, the whip he would get on some of those shots. And the fact that anytime he shot, you thought, yeah, okay, this is probably going into the top bins. And ultimately, I think that power maybe held him back a little bit because of some injuries later on in his career. But then you're thinking about goals and assists. I mean, the one season he had, the main one, where he got 21 goals and 4 assists for Spurs, and that was in 2012-2013 season. That season was just absolutely phenomenal. But then when you look further back, like I said, because he's playing left back, his time in the Premier League where he was outstanding wasn't that long. It wasn't that many seasons. It was maybe the last 3 seasons he had, and then up until then he was maybe showing incredible promise. But in terms of seasons, I think that you can compare with Mohamed Salah, I think it's really only the last 3, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of an all-time 11, you probably can discount. You might have to discount him, but I think in terms of just raw talent and ability, in terms of what we've seen in the Premier League and what he could produce, he absolutely has to be there. And then obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, who I think for a long time was probably like a given to be in the Premier League all-time 11 because of the fact that, we'd only seen 20 years of the Premier League or so at the time, by the time he left. And then we were looking at him as being, for all the stats you said, being one of the best players we've ever seen. But it's difficult now because we're looking at just Premier League and the time he had in the Premier League, because his best years were at Real Madrid, even though he had fantastic time at Man United. And like you said, he scored all those goals, got all the assists, won all those accolades. But really, because he was there for a while, but we were watching his development slowly and we saw the promise that he had. Whereas we didn't see that with Salah. We saw he obviously showed a bit of promise at Chelsea, then got sold to Fiorentina, then went to Roma, then came back to Liverpool, established and as the main man. I I think it's very difficult to compare Ronaldo and Salah, and this is me. This is me saying that I'm not sure that Cristiano Ronaldo makes it in the all-time Premier League 11, just because I just don't the longevity that Salah's had, and it's a shame because basically what I'm saying is if you're English, you got more chance of being in an all-time Premier League 11 because you've basically been here for a longer period of time. But also Salah's peak, he got more goals, he got more assists. So yeah, this is me saying I'm not sure about Cristiano Ronaldo in an all-time Premier League 11. Thoughts? Go on, hammer me.
No, I think it is. It just depends what you look for most, I guess. And I think that's the same with a number of positions that we'll get onto when we actually do our 11s, that you can go one way or the other completely. And I think that's completely fair. If you value longevity over maybe a peak, that's fine. I don't think there's any issue with not having Ronaldo in. I've seen a number of 11s without Ronaldo in, and it's the same argument that maybe if he had another, even another season, I think could have really cemented him in there. If he had another, say, 30-goal season where he was top 2, 3 in the Ballon d'Or, and Man United won another title when he was there, then it makes a stronger case. Yeah, I don't, because it's difficult because of the players we have as well. Somebody's got to miss out eventually, haven't they? And if Ronaldo's not in maybe that first 11, he is almost certainly in the second 11, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. He's definitely making the squad at the very least. There is no doubt about that. But actually, you've mentioned it twice now. I'm not sure you've realised, and I'm not sure if you're taking this into account. So I need to ask you about it. You mentioned the Ballon d'Or twice, actually. And obviously, when we're talking about Mohamed Salah, he's never won it. But he's had seasons where you've gone and you've looked at it and go, okay, if he won the Ballon d'Or this season, fair play. But it's just because it's not necessarily lined up for him perfectly. Maybe it's the fact that he plays for Egypt and they don't have a chance, as good a chance at an international level as Portugal do. Maybe it's the fact that Liverpool haven't quite won the Champions League or the Premier League at the right time, that he's had an amazing season as well. Do you think the Ballon d'Or, because of the fact that it's a little bit more subjective, should take a greater weighting into this? Or do you think that the Ballon d'Or is a Ballon d'Or and it's the pinnacle of individual achievements?
No, I wouldn't say it's the most important thing. I think it maybe just adds a bit of weight to an argument. I think it just displays that person was at least like top 3 in the world in that season, because I don't think, like you say, they always get it right. I mean, the fact that Lewandowski didn't win in like 2020 or 2021 kind of says enough maybe about the Ballon d'Or. And Thierry Henry never won the Ballon d'Or, a player who is probably in every single Premier League all-time 11, highly regarded as the best Premier League player ever, never won the Ballon d'Or either. So it's just like another bit of argument. But when we look at Salah, yeah, he hasn't won the Ballon d'Or, but he's won the PFA Player of the Season 3 times and the Premier League Golden Boot 4 times. So we know at least that he was the best player in the Premier League for a number of years. So without a Ballon d'Or, does it make that much difference? Maybe a tiny little gold star for each player who has it, I guess, in my view.
It would definitely help any argument that you were making that if Salah had won the Ballon d'Or, it would definitely boost him up a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Since we've been talking about it a little bit, I mean, going around it, should we just get into our all-time Premier League 11 then? Because I think this might take us a little bit of time, and so we should probably just make sure that we get it right and we don't make sure we rush it towards the end. So I guess the first thing to start with is, do you think Mohamed Salah makes the all-time Premier League 11 in the starting 11?
Oh, are we going straight in there? I thought we were going to build our team and save it for the end, because
while we're talking about Salah and the right wing and right midfield position, I think we should probably work our way from there, and we'll decide from there, because I mean, this is what the viewers have clicked for, I think. So
I mean, I've been terrible and I'm still undecided.
Ah,
mine is formation based at the moment, and I either
okay.
for
What do you
me
think
it's
should be the all-time Premier League formation?
again I don't know. For me, it's either I've got Salah or even a number of Premier League midfielders to go in the team, and I'm so torn about who to have. I think I would say I'm leaning very strongly towards a 4-4-2 that does include Mohamed Salah.
Okay. I don't hate that. The only issue I have is I I think I can see what you're trying to do and the players that you're trying to fit in at right midfield, left midfield, and up front. The only issue I have is I think there are some phenomenal all-time Premier League midfielders, and to go from 3 to 2, I think is absolutely mental. I also will say that the whichever formation that we do have, 4-4-2 or 4-3-3, I would also go with Mohamed Salah on that right hand side because I do think he has been, in terms of all time Premier League right attacker, I think he has been the best that I think we've ever seen. And yes, I mean obviously I am of a certain age, so I've had to go back and I have to watch clips and watch videos and find stats of those older. But I don't think there is anyone that compares to Mohamed Salah on that right hand side. And the fact that he's solely a player on that right hand side, I think for me, it is nailed. I think he's nailed it for me. I don't even think that there's a debate. I think the other players are in competition, but I don't think Mohamed Salah is a debate anymore for that all-time Premier League midfield. Is that? Do you think that's controversial? Am I being too strong on that? Too bold?
Yeah, I agree that he is the best right-sided player in Premier League history.
Mm.
I 100% agree with that. For me, it's like him and Ronaldo is like who do you get in there, and I think that's the argument where you can go in two directions. Is maybe where I was trying to potentially I might have another midfielder and have Ronaldo in my front three on the right, or I would have Salah. I would be slightly leaning towards Salah because I do agree with you that Ronaldo, I think, was much stronger at Real Madrid and had a number of years at United where he was still growing and so young. So I do agree that Salah, besides potentially Ronaldo, who I could still be convinced to go in, would be in there. How do you think? Because we didn't really touch on him too much. How do you think Salah compares to Beckham? And do you think there is much of a debate or an argument in having Beckham, for example, in an all-time 11?
Oh Jesus. I again, it's so hard to argue with the numbers. That's how it's provided over the course of his time. What I would say on Beckham though is he also left, and I think his best years were at Manchester United. I think that when he was at Real Madrid, that we didn't necessarily see the best of David Beckham that we saw in the Premier League. Although I think we did get a very good version of him that he was there when he was in Spain. I think it's just numbers. I just can't find any stat to go right. David Beckham deserves to be in the all-time Premier League 11 over Mohamed Salah, considering the fact that Salah's got more assists than David. I'm right in saying that, right? Salah's got more assists than David Beckham as well. Yeah. And you probably think of Beckham and you think of the cross that he puts in from the right-hand side, the big curler, and then he finds the head of the striker easily, and then they nod in the back of the net. The fact that Salah's got more assists than David Beckham as well is why I would just go Salah. I think David Beckham is a phenomenal footballer and one of the ones I loved watching growing up. But I just don't think you can argue with Salah. And that might be, it's a very one-sided view, but we have been so lucky to watch what he's done over the course of the season. And even though he's been having a terrible season this season, he's still got 19 goals and assists in all competitions, which is still mental. And you'd still pay a lot of money for that in any team. So I don't see how Beckham can go inside, even though if he was, I wouldn't complain. But for my team, I think it just has to be Salah.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree with you. I think as individual players, Salah has had more impact and is a better Premier League player. I would say I think Beckham was certainly part of a better team. I mean, he won 6 Premier Leagues as opposed to Salah's 2, and I think that's could have a bit of sway towards Beckham when I don't think it should in terms of how an individual is. I mean, you look at the team that Beckham was playing with in York: Cole, Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Neville. Almost every player on that team in the late 90s and early noughties you could think could go into the all-time 11 because it was just such an incredible team who all played so well together. But I do think, yes, Salah as an individual was stronger than Beckham. And I think with Beckham as well, it's easy to get a little bit swayed, being English ourselves in the Premier League, being in the English league, a little bit swayed maybe by his international performances for England, where he was very consistent and very good, even as he sort of moved outside of England as well. And I don't want that to maybe have an impact on this, as it is meant to be obviously purely Premier League. So yeah, I would agree with you on that. That I don't think Beckham makes it into this team anymore.
Yeah, and it's taken a long time to get to the point from when he left the Premier League to now that we think that Salah, and it took Salah, I don't think it was until recently, really, the last few seasons of Mohamed Salah, where he would have definitely displaced David Beckham. But I think he has now done that as well. So we've got Salah on the right in some shape or form. Let's go up front. Let's go up front, shall we? Because I think who we have up front could maybe sway the rest of the attackers behind them.
Should we just get the obvious one out the way? He'll either...
Is it obvious?
It's so obvious. It's so obvious. He's either going to be up front on the left. It's Thierry Henry, right? Come on, has to be in the 11.
Yes, Thierry Henry is in my 11, right? But that's not the striker I thought you were going to say.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because in terms of an all-time Premier League 11, right? I think you have to have the all-time Premier League top goal scorer. And I would go with Alan Shearer up front, which is why I've been hesitant to mention Thierry Henry, because I didn't want to give out the fact that me personally, I would have had him on the left. But if you were to play a 4-4-2, then you could have Shearer and Henry up front together. And so I didn't want to really mention that. So I don't know where you go. So I think we're in agreement that Thierry Henry has to be in the all-time Premier League 11. You're the Arsenal fan. Do you want to just give us a short case of why that's the case?
Yeah, I'll keep it short because I feel like there's been enough said about him throughout the years. Most golden boots in Premier League history, tied with Salah with 4, 175 goals and 74 assists in 258 appearances. Similar to Salah, just incredible player, great goals, great creator, 2 Premier League titles. Yeah, and I feel like enough has been said about him. He is, for me, the best Premier League player of all time. That's it. That's it for me. Yeah, he was the first name I had to have in the 11.
Full stop, mic drop. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, Thierry Henry, like, I think he's different to Ronaldo because I think he maybe had... Well, let me be fair, I'm looking at his numbers now. I mean, his first season, 17 goals, 8 assists. I mean, so 25 attacking returns, then 26, then 29, then 44 when he scored 24 goals and got 20 assists. Still the all-time assist. Joined with Kevin De Bruyne, though, who we may mention later on. Then he got 36, then 39, then 35. So he was at the top of his game for so long. And so I think that he was probably... Ronaldo could have got to, like, Thierry numbers and consistency and been, like, the all-time Premier League player, the best ever we've seen. But he just didn't stay long enough. And I think for me that, like you said, Thierry Henry is an absolute shoo-in. It just depends where in the team, because I've got Salah on the right, Shearer up front, and Henry on the left. So you're saying you got Salah on the right and Thierry Henry up front, and then someone else on the left?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm potentially either having Shearer and Ronaldo or just Shearer, I would say. And this is where I'm really torn. But originally, I do agree with you. Shearer was one of the ones that I really want to have in this team. So maybe we should just touch on Shearer, because I think for me he's a much stronger case than Ronaldo in my team.
Yeah, I think. Well, for me, it really. I didn't even think about Ronaldo. Like, I didn't think about moving Henri out from the left to go up front for Cristiano Ronaldo, because I thought to myself that even ahead of Cristiano Ronaldo, I thought that Harry Kane or Alan Shearer has to be up there as contention for one of the strikers, because Alan Shearer 260 Premier League goals, Harry Kane 213. Harry Kane probably would have broken Alan Shearer's record by now had he stayed in England, and Spurs' whole future right now might have been completely different. Um, but I think the fact that he was so consistent for such a long period of time, he picked up that nasty ACL injury, which put him out for a long time. He then had to adapt his game, so he no longer relied on his pace as much. He used his strength, he used his hold-up play, he used link-up play, and then he's still able to come back from that. And ultimately, his career was ended early against Sunderland because of an injury. So he might have even gone on a little bit further than that, because that was right at the end of the season as well. They picked up that injury. And so we could be looking at someone who was staying fit the entire time. Someone who got 300 Premier League goals during their time for Blackburn, for Newcastle, not the sides who were dominating week in, well, season out, season in, season out, like he was like if he went to Manchester United. But he was always competing as someone who's a little bit the underdog, even when he was at Blackburn Rovers and they had all the money to spend. So I think for me that Alan Shearer, and again, obviously, I mean, it helps with the fact that he's English. He's got the massive longevity to help him out as well. But I just think that I just thought for the all-time Premier League 11, the all-time Premier League top goal scorer had to be in there, especially considering there's 47 goals between him and the next other guy, and another 50 odd between the next one. So yeah, I thought 20 more years since he's probably retired, roughly, I think it is, and he's still top. So I thought Alan Shearer had to be in it. I thought you were going to agree with me, but you clearly don't.
No, I do have Shearer in, and yeah, it was just about whether it's a
Okay.
2 or a 3. But yeah, I mean, you look at his list of goals per season: 31, 34, 31, 25, 23, 23, and 22. And as you said, he retired, I think, when he was 34, 35. These days, if he was still playing, you'd get another 3 or 4 seasons, I think, out of that. And out of a player like Alan Shearer, who's such an intelligent footballer, like you say, somebody who didn't rely on purely on their physicality, because was such a good striker of the ball and such a good finisher, that he was able to do it for a number of years in a number of different systems, even if it was the same team as well. So yeah, I agree with that for Shearer, and even in terms of, I think some players you have in that sort of 100 club for Premier League goals, a lot of them I think are there because of the number of games that they've played, and you're sort of seeing maybe like 15, 16, 17 goal seasons sort of consistently through maybe 15, even 20 seasons for some. Whereas Shearer, 440 appearances, you're looking at like 12 full seasons if they're playing every game, to which, if you're a professional footballer, that's even 20 to 32. There's still so much room, and yeah, to do it in that space of time and do it how he did it, yeah, I agree that he has to be in there. There's just still weird shufflings going on in my team. So yeah, I had like sectioned in my team were Henry and Shearer as 100%, Salah as like a 90%, and Ronaldo at somewhere like a, I don't know, like a 60. So yeah, it's difficult.
Um, so I can understand, yeah, what you're doing there, but can I actually say that I think there's another player that we haven't mentioned who should go in ahead of Cristiano Ronaldo, and I'm not just a Ronaldo hater, but I think that we've had so many world class players that if you were playing a 4-4-2 and on the left hand side, because this player often sacrificed himself for the greater good of his team and often didn't like playing as a striker and often played elsewhere. I think that Wayne Rooney's got a shout of being in this all-time Premier League 11 and being ahead of a Cristiano Ronaldo, because of the fact that he scored 208 Premier League goals, and 883 of those being for Manchester United and 25 of them being for Everton, and the fact that he's got 103 assists as well. And also when you think about how young he actually did leave the Premier League and then made the move over to the MLS, his legs, because of the fact that he started his career so young, ended up failing him a little bit towards the back end of his career, like we mentioned with maybe Raheem Sterling earlier on. I think that if you're playing 4-4-2, you could have Salah right, Henry, Shearer up front, Rooney left. But in the way I had my team, it was a 4-3-3, but it was Salah right, Shearer up front, Henry left, and then Rooney in the cam, because I think he can do that and he can be the late run into the box, but he could also be a striker, or I think he could be a left winger as well. So I'm not a Ronaldo hater, but I just think that we've been so blessed that I think that even not even Wayne Rooney, but Wayne Rooney makes it over Ronaldo, in my opinion.
Yeah, Rooney is a really good shout, and he's on that sort of list of players that I was trying to maybe get in or at least think about. But I think just with Rooney, he is below Henry and Shearer, and it felt less likely to try and shoehorn him into another position for me. And I think Rooney had a number of years at the end of his career, especially at United, where I think he did drop a level. I couldn't get him into that team. For me, he doesn't get in over Omri in terms of impact. He doesn't get in ahead of Shearer in terms of, pure goal scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if people had him in their team. I think especially United fans of maybe our age, he is possibly like their favourite ever player is Wayne Rooney, and would have him in that team, and I wouldn't be super against it. He is further out of that team for me. And I think I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to concede in terms of the front three of being Salah, Henry, and Shearer, and I think it's going to take me a lot of convincing for us to get Ronaldo into the team. So I'm happy for convenience and to get it done early to lock in that front three of Salah, Henry, and Shearer.
So we're going for a 3 then, and not a 4 and a 4-4-2.
I think so, because I think if I'm having a hard enough time getting Ronaldo in at the moment, I think once we move on to that central midfield discussion, I think it's going to be even tougher.
Okay, fair enough. So Mohamed Salah does make the all-time Premier League 11, in our opinion, with Shearer and Henry to make the front three. I guess I'll ask the question again about Rooney. Does he make it in a 3-man midfield, even if he was playing cam? Because now all of a sudden you're putting him up against the likes of Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, also likes of Kevin De Bruyne. Thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, Rooney did play a number of positions. When he was playing in other positions, he wasn't as good as when he was playing up front, to be honest. Certainly in terms of playing in a midfield, there is I'd probably say 6 players ahead of him who would go into a midfield 3 instead of Rooney, unfortunately.
I would also agree. I think that Wayne Rooney's best positions were the attacking ones, and I could definitely see the people wanting to make the argument, but I don't think that Rooney off the left, Henry off the right, I don't think that works, and if we're trying to make it the best possible that it can be. So those 6 midfielders you said, let me try and guess them, because I've been probably thinking about the very same exact names. Is it Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, Keane, Vieira, and Kevin De Bruyne?
Spot on, mate. Spot on. Yeah, that's like the exact list I had.
So who wants to go first then?
I will go first with maybe, for me, the first choice. I would say.
Do you feel strongly about this?
Yeah, I mean, because of the way I sort of set my team, I have two for me were definites. One that I think is the strongest one for me is Frank Lampard. I think he has to be in this team. Most goals from a Premier League midfielder with 177, 4th in the all-time list for assists with 102, 3 Premier Leagues, and in 2005 took the whole haul of Player of the Season awards. A really, really intelligent player. One of Chelsea's leaders in that spell where they were absolutely exceptional. And somebody I think who was not the most technically gifted, but was just such a good reader of the game in terms of goal scoring, in terms of creativity. Just an exceptional footballer. And I think maybe one that I feel like he gets a little bit underrated at times, I think, when we talk about the midfield. I think people's I think when I said with Salah in terms of efficiency, that when you say that about Frank Lampard, people say, oh, it's just because he scored loads of goals, when I think that really undermines what his whole game was and how good of a player he was. Frank Lampard for me, he definitely had to be in the midfield.
That is not the name I thought you were going to say. And it's tough because he is the best. Yeah, yeah, he is the best goal scorer midfielder I think I've probably ever seen. But it's hard. How do you compare an individual? Because he was great in that Chelsea team, but so was that Chelsea team at the time. How do you compare him with someone who I really want to get into this team, and you can probably guess where I'm going with this, in Steven Gerrard, because of the fact that, yes, he never won the Premier League. Yes, only won the one Champions League, and he didn't get as many goals and he didn't get as many assists as Frank Lampard. But I think in terms of impact that he had, I mean, what are Liverpool today without Steven Gerrard? Are they even a Champions League level club today? He literally carried my entire childhood, and I think most of a lot of Liverpool fans growing up at the time that we did. And I think his numbers would have been better if he wasn't so often sacrificing himself for the greater good of the side, whether that be playing in an 8, playing in the 6, whatever the club needed him to be. I mean, he's starting his career at right back for Liverpool. Whatever they needed Steven Gerrard to be, he would do that. And at one point, it was literally him carrying us on our back for a good 5-6 years when we were absolutely rubbish. And so for me, I thought to myself that because he had to sacrifice himself so much for the betterment of the team, he was never able to flourish and show his best ability. And so for me, I had Steven Gerrard in there because, yes, we saw what we saw, and he was in the Premier League for the majority of his career. But also, what could have been if he was in a different team? Because I don't think Frank Lampard, roles reverse, I don't think Frank Lampard could have done what he did for Liverpool. But I think Steven Gerrard could have done better than Frank Lampard did if he was in the Chelsea squad with the managers and the players they had around him.
I don't agree with that. I think that is very, very strong. I think Lampard would have been... No, I think Lampard and Gerrard are very, very different players, but I think Lampard still would have had a massive impact on Liverpool. I agree with you that I think Gerrard probably would have had as successful career at Chelsea, and I think would have done as well. It's maybe a slightly different role, but I think the same for Lampard. I think Lampard would have really carried Liverpool in that time when Steven Gerrard did in the Premier League, just in a different way. I mean, Gerrard is a lot more defensive. I think is stronger and probably has a better range of passing. Like you said, that I think those attributes maybe pulled him further back away from the goal. But I think Lampard would have come into that team and been the real sort of creative number 10 in there. Maybe the player that Liverpool needed less at the time, but I think his impact still would have been as strong. And again, I think he is just, for me, Lampard I think is exceptional.
Okay, do we get them both in the team then, and then someone else sitting?
I think that sounds like an easy solution, and me saying that is not me trying to undermine Steven Gerrard at all, because for me he would be my third choice to go into that midfield 3. So I definitely think he should be in there as well. Like you've said, I agree with all of it besides the slight diss on Frank Lampard. But yeah, Gerrard.
Remember, Toby, you're an Arsenal fan, right? You're an Arsenal fan. But the thing is, I know, if we
that says enough.
Put Gerrard and Lampard in there straight away, I think we've got to discount Kevin De Bruyne because that's not a midfield 3 that can work. And I'm not sure.
Oh, no. See, they're getting back to this. This team isn't playing, Mev. You've just got to have the three best midfielders.
Oh, no. It just won't function. We literally saw it for England. A Gerrard, Lampard, midfield 2 just does not work. No.
That midfield, I think that midfield 3 would work.
Who's sitting? Who's the deepest of those 3?
Well, like you said, in terms of Gerrard having to do different things to Liverpool, have Gerrard sitting as the deepest, Lampard off the left, and Kevin De Bruyne off the right.
That's where Salah's playing off the right.
We're not. I'm sorry, but if we're going for those, we can't just shoehorn in a slightly more defensive player.
They're the best defensive midfielder the Premier League's ever seen. It's not shoehorning anyone in. You're shoehorning De Bruyne in.
I think those 3 I think you agree that those three are the best midfield three in terms of Premier League quality, and in terms of overall
Are you
midfielders
also
are the
discounting
best
Paul
three.
Scholes?
Yeah, I think those three are better players than Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes is an exceptional midfielder, but individually was not better than those three.
Okay, so what I will do is I will discount Patrick Vieira, because I think. Okay, cool.
I agree.
I think you need a player who's slightly more defensive, but I don't think it could be Gerrard because that was Gerrard at the back end of his Liverpool career. For me, am I going to say this? For me, I might have to go Roy Keane, you know?
I would say Keane and Scholes are probably on a similar level for me as the fourth and fifth pick. They would be ahead of Vieira, I agree. Both had exceptional careers and very, very good players. Number of Premier League titles, leaders of the team. Longevity, I think both of them have in abundance. Great defensively, great readers of the game. But I do think that their individual quality is nowhere near that of no, that's too strong. Is not as strong as Gerrard, Lampard, and De Bruyne. And I think probably their Premier League legacy is as well a little bit strengthened by the team that they were in and the dominance that Manchester United had under Sir Alex Ferguson. And I think you can use a similar argument in terms of Ryan Giggs. I think Ryan Giggs is probably on a similar level of player as Scholes and Keane, and a really, really good player. But I think then when you compare Giggs to the likes of Salah or Henry, he doesn't get in the team despite the longevity of his career, despite how good of a player he is. And I think for me, the same applies when you compare Scholes and Keane to Lampard, De Bruyne,
Okay, then I'll
and
ask
Gerrard,
you,
I would say.
who is the best defender out of those six?
It would be Keane. It would be Keane probably by a decent stretch. And I think if you're going off that, then I think we probably have to maybe discount Paul Scholes, who I don't think was a particularly strong defender, and if anything, is a similar player
It's
to
weird
somebody
because
like
I think
Steven
with Paul
Gerrard.
Scholes, he's not the best defender out of those six, but he's also not the best attacker out of those six. He's just all round really good, but I don't think when you're trying to put him in an all-time team, I don't think that helps. And I think that's why, for me, I would go Keane defend as a defensive-minded player, but then I think it would leave us with Gerrard, Lampard, De Bruyne. And are we discounting Kevin De Bruyne? Is that a bit of recency bias? Is it just...
No, he can't. De Bruyne for
Ahead
me
of
was my number
Gerrard.
2 ahead of Gerrard. I think because of recency, De Bruyne is so easily overlooked. He's got the second most assists of all time. He's got 3 Playmakers Award and most assists in the season. Premier League Player of the Season twice. PFA Player of the Season twice. 6 Premier Leagues. This man is absolutely ridiculously good. In terms of Premier League impact, I mean, they've got 4 Premier League titles in a row. Nobody's ever done that, and Kevin De Bruyne was arguably the best player in the league doing that.
You know what? I don't agree. But because you had decided to help me and move on from Ronaldo by dropping him, I would drop Steven Gerrard for Kevin De Bruyne. And we'll go Lampard, De Bruyne, Keane. But I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy at all about it. If I was doing this on my own, if Steven Gerrard would be in there. But we need to move on to the defenders.
No, Steven Gerrard is in the team, isn't he? We've got to have Steven. Well, I think we need to have Lampard, Gerrard, and De Bruyne.
No,
Surely
it
that's
does.
just
The
a
midfield
happy
three
medium for all
will
of us.
not work, and I would rather sacrifice Gerrard as like my favorite ever Premier League player, because obviously I'm a Liverpool fan. But I will sacrifice him for the sake of having some balance. Balance is so important. It's why England never do well at an international tournament.
No,
we have no balance.
It's not important. It's not.
It is important.
It's
You
not
need
important. This is the best. This is the best individual.
Yes, and who's the best? I mean, to be fair, we didn't even mention like Kante or Rodri, who won the Ballon d'Or. But no, you need to have someone slightly more defensive than the rest, but also King can get forward. He's done it loads. But we just need someone. Gerrard, Lampard, De Bruyne does not work at the midfield three. It just doesn't, and I'm not having it.
But why does that matter? We just got different. I think we need to just split the team here and have a team that we play with, would play with, and just the best 11.
But no, this is
just the best team, the best players. Because that's for me what it is all about, is getting in the best players.
But then how can you not have Rooney then? I don't know. Can we play Salah right wing back, Ronaldo left wing back, and then just put like Steven Gerrard as a sweeper at centre back? Because why not at this point?
Yeah, no, honestly, I wouldn't be against that. Get some more
forwards. We'll go Lampard. What is it? Lampard, Gerrard, De Bruyne. We'll go the midfield three. Who is it? A 2 and a 1, or is it a 1 and a 2?
Just a flat three.
Okay,
just
cool.
a flat three.
It doesn't matter. Defenders, all right. Toby, take it away. Go on, just you take it away. Yeah,
I think this will be easier. This will be easy, won't it? We're gonna have the same fullbacks, I hope. Although actually saying that, there's actually quite a good discussion for right back, so maybe not. Left back is definitely Ashley Cole.
Right back,
is it not?
Is it Gary Neville and Kyle Walker?
Yeah, I have gone for Gary Neville. 8. Okay, nice. How close is it for you in terms of Walker?
And it's tough because I think of his punditry career, I think his footballing career has taken a bit of a hit, because he's constantly getting ridiculed and he constantly puts himself down. That people forget that for 16, 17 seasons, he was the best Premier League right back in the league, no doubt. And do you have some stats on him?
Yeah, I mean, there's not many goal scoring or assist stats. He was almost the complete opposite player of that. But yeah, 400 Premier League appearances, 8 Premier Leagues, 3 FA Cups, 3 Football League trophies, and 2 Champions Leagues. And again, yeah, just one of the leaders in that Manchester United team for a number of years. So consistent. And I think maybe when we look back on Neville, it's slightly different in terms of how the role of a fullback has really changed. And I think in Neville's time, he was easily the best right back in the league, if not in Europe. Whereas now, I think when we look at, sort of Kyle Walker's, Trent Alexander-Arnold's, very, very different fits for fullback, and good arguments potentially for them to be in there in terms of quality. But yeah, I think in overall right back, overall Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Walker one-on-one against anyone like Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., he showed that he's able to compete with them. I think you can flip a coin, and I think you could choose either one, and I don't think people will have too many complaints. For me personally, though, I think it is Gary Neville, but only just. So we're going Cole left back, Neville right back. Are we going for an all-English back four?
I have. This is maybe a couple names you could throw in there, but I still feel like this was fairly easy.
I think it's definitely John Terry, head and shoulders above everyone. I think Ferdinand you could maybe have a bit of discussion about, because I mean the other centre backs I would maybe consider. I don't think they have longevity, but you can maybe consider Nemanja Vidic. You can maybe consider Carvalho. I think the players who have a little bit more longevity, you can maybe discuss Sol Campbell. I think you can also discuss Tony Adams. And also I think recently Virgil van Dijk is in there as well. So I don't feel particularly strongly about Rio Ferdinand being in the team or not. I would probably for now still go with him. And I think the one for me would maybe Virgil van Dijk when he leaves Liverpool or when he decides to retire. And then I can see his career as a whole. But I think for now, it is probably Ferdinand. But I think his time in the team may be running out, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I've also got Terry and Ferdinand. I agree. Terry is the easy pick. 5 Premier Leagues, 409 Premier League appearances, and the top scoring defender in the Premier League. That I think even if he didn't have that, he would still fairly comfortably be in it. And I think is certainly the best centre back defensively. Yeah, incredible career with Chelsea. Ferdinand, I think, is maybe a little bit stronger than you were suggesting, but I do agree that if one was going to go for maybe a Vidic or a Van Dijk, I'd say probably the next two. Yeah, I'd say like Adams, Campbell, are slightly further down. It would be Ferdinand, but even with Rio Ferdinand, 500 Premier League appearances, 6 Premier Leagues. Even that when he was at like Leeds and moved to Manchester United, the fee that he went for back then was astronomical. I mean, if that was in today's terms, you're looking at well over £100 million. And I do think he was and had a better career than Van Dijk. And I'm not sure that even when Van Dijk retires that he'll get into the team. I think Rio Ferdinand will still be in there. And I think, yeah, parts of his game, I think, again, because of the time period, are slightly underrated. And that when you look back in terms of a ball-playing centre-back, it was maybe seen as like a little perk because it was a lot more unlikely for defenders to be playing it out from the back as they do now. Whereas I think that's now something that's really regarded in Van Dijk in terms of his ball playing. Whereas, yeah, if Rio Ferdinand was playing now, he would still fit so comfortably into any team. And just, yeah, his talent as well.
Yeah, I completely agree that I think that Ferdinand will end this, and Ferdinand will have the better career over Virgil van Dijk because of the fact that he will have just won more stuff and won it more often. But I think in terms of the players that they were, Ferdinand and Van Dijk, I think personally are a lot closer than you were maybe suggesting as well. I think that if, everything you said about Ferdinand, put Van Dijk into that Man United team, and I don't think many players now you could go, okay, how would they do back then? I think Van Dijk is one that would be up for the fight and would do it really, really well. I suppose a couple of names we didn't mention, Jamie Carragher. I think it's pretty well regarded that he was obviously a very good player at the time, but obviously not the level of Ferdinand or Terry. I suppose another one would be Vincent Kompany. Didn't really get a shout out from us. A player who won multiple Premier Leagues with Manchester City. Not for me personally. I think I look at him and look at his outstanding trait, and I go, it's probably his leadership. But I look at what he could do better than a Terry or Ferdinand or even a Van Dijk, and I go, I'm not sure there is much technically, physically, in terms of defending, what traits that he has there. I'm not sure about that. Any other centre backs that you think we're missing?
No, I don't think so. I think Kompany, yeah, very good reader of the game and a great player, but just doesn't make it. Yeah, he's probably on a level with like Sol Campbell. For me, I would say that they're Carragher, I think, is a rogue thrower. I think he is definitely the tier below any of the other names I'd say we'd mentioned. But I guess, yeah, for like longevity and yeah, he's made a super, super high number of appearances. So he's a very good player. But yeah, he's in that.
Martin Skirtle, Mamadou Sakho, Dejan Lovren, and all right.
At this rate, we're going to be putting Sebastian Spalacci in, mate.
God,
so
I remember
let's
him
not get too
from
carried away.
Right. I mean, to be fair, you could maybe say this one's obvious. I think there is a 51-49% argument you can make for this one between two. And for me, I think a lot of people would go put Peter Schmeichel in and wouldn't question it. I actually think you have to very, very, very closely consider and take into massive consideration Peter Cech as well, in my opinion. And for me, it would be between those two.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is when I mentioned earlier in terms of that sort of the Ronaldo debate in terms of peak and longevity and consistency. And I think this is a really good argument for those. And I know Peter Schmeichel was at Man United for a number of years, but I think at his peak, Peter Schmeichel was probably the best goalie that we've ever seen in the Premier League at his best. But I have gone with Petr Cech as my goalie.
Arsenal fan.
11.
Arsenal fan.
Most Golden Gloves joint with 4. Exactly, and there's no bias. There's no bias there, man. Most Golden Gloves with 4. Most clean sheets in the league with 202. Most clean sheets in a single season with 24. And 4 Premier League titles. And he even was pretty decent at Arsenal, at least in his first season and a half. He sort of fell off towards the end. But yeah, just so good. So good. And a keeper, I think, who was really good and consistent at everything. Peter Schmeichel in terms of shot stopping, and as I said, Peak was maybe better. So I'm not completely decided either way, and I could
You know, I
completely
completely
think it's
forgot
fair
he
if
was actually
Schmeichel's
at
in.
Arsenal for a bit, and that's why you've got Peter Schmeichel, Peter Cech in your team as well, isn't it? Um, yeah. So it's difficult because we're fans of a certain age, and so we grew up watching Peter Cech, and we missed the best of Peter Schmeichel because he left the Premier League in '99, I think it was after the treble season, and then he went off, I think, to Sporting Lisbon, came back to Aston Villa, then came back to Manchester City as well. But that was not peak Peter Schmeichel that we maybe saw at the very beginning of our footballing lives. So I think personally I would have to go for Peter Cech, and this is just in my opinion. I would have to say this is more of a generation thing. I have to go for Peter Cech. I also think that looking back at Peter Schmeichel, I think that the way a lot of people talk about him and the stats that he has are all incredible. And I think that maybe the fact that he's a very loud personality, and that's what a lot of people say about him at the time, that he was very loud, very vocal on the football pitch. And that maybe puts him up a little bit and puts him into people's minds a lot more than the Peter Cech who's a bit more quieter and a bit more humble. But I just think for me personally, and this is the first one where I have to go and I have to justify this. For me personally, from what I saw with my own eyes, I have to go with Peter Cech. And it pains me to say it because that's another Chelsea player, even though I didn't want Frank Lampard in the first place. Yeah. That was it.
So there we go. So I think we've made some compromises.
We have a
I think
team.
we have a settled team. I mean, I was pretty strong to having Ronaldo in it, at the start, and I pushed him out to get another midfielder in. And I think the balance, man, don't worry about it. We want the vibes. We want the fun. We want the best players.
I think
we've got those.
10 to make a team. We have 10 amazing players, and then we've just chucked in the best midfielders the world's ever seen. Well, the Premier League's ever seen. I'm just hoping for the best.
That sounds like a pretty.
I'm not sure about. I'm not sure about them playing in a flat midfield three. I'll be honest. But maybe they'll all need to do a job respectively. So yeah, maybe that'll be how it works out. But okay, go on, Toby. Run us through our team.
So we have Petr Cech in goal, right back Gary Neville, a centre back pairing of John Terry and Rio Ferdinand. Left back is Ashley Cole, and then a midfield three, a beautiful midfield three that we both love and adore, and we think will play so well together. Of Lampard, Gerrard, and De Bruyne. And then a front three of Omri on the left, Shearer up front, and Mohamed Salah. He does make the team on the right wing.